Today I'd like to talk about my experiences buying a second-hand motorbike here in Thailand, and also why I think it's probably true to say that a lot of motorbikes here have their odometers, their kilometer clock, turned back so that the bike you buy thinking you're buying a bike with 10,000 kilometers on it has probably done 20, 30 or more thousand kilometers than the odometer indicates. Why it is that almost none of these second-hand bikes has any sort of service history. Why it is that even though on Facebook Marketplace it looks like the person selling the bike is a private Thai citizen, it's probably almost certainly not being sold privately. Those are my experience. Those are the points that I've taken away from buying a motorbike recently here in Thailand. Some of you who've watched other of my videos may know that I used to have a beautiful, very nice Royal Enfield Classic 350 motorbike, and I used that bike. I only bought it last year in May of 2023, and I used that bike actually to ride down at the end of February from Chiang Rai, where I live, to Chumpon, which is pretty well in the towards the south of Thailand. I went down there for 2 months to escape the so-called smoky season here up in the north. And beautiful bike, never had any trouble with it. But I had the feeling, especially on a long trip like that, which was over 1,000 kilometers, 1,250 kilometers, that it was a little bit underpowered. Its top speed, it maxed out at 100 kilometers an hour. And there were times, especially on the highway, where I thought, okay, I could do with a little bit more power. I'd like to be able to overtake a bit more easily, or perhaps if I need to in an emergency situation on the road, you know, have a bit more power to get out of the way quickly, that sort of thing. So anyway, after owning the bike for a year, that I would try to sell it, and I did. I sold it here locally in Chiang Rai province to another foreigner, and he's very happy with it. And then I was faced with the question, what do I get instead? Now that I've sold my Royal Enfield, I need another bike. I depend on my motorbike to get around. I don't have a car. The Thais also use Facebook Marketplace for buying and selling things as well. So anyway, I started looking on Facebook, and actually before I came back up from Chumpon in the south of Thailand, I'd found a bike. At the time it was a Royal Enfield Interceptor. I'd found a very interesting, beautiful looking bike in Bangkok, which I thought was being sold privately by a Thai. It was advertised on Facebook Marketplace. On the way back up to Chiang Rai, I went through Bangkok in order to look at this bike, which I did. I rode it up and down the road. It seemed like an interesting bike, maybe a good one to replace my Classic 350. And then I asked to see the Green Book. Well, the Green Book is the main document, the only real important legal document here to show the ownership of a vehicle, a motorbike in this case, or a Green Book, Blue Book I think for cars, Green Book for a motorbike. And they said, oh yeah, I realized pretty quickly as well that this was not a normal private sale, because there were probably a dozen bikes standing in front of the house where I went to look at it. And it turns out that it was a small buying and selling motorbike business of some sort, not an individual selling the bike. And I asked to see the Green Book, and they said to me, oh, we don't have it at the moment, it's with the finance company. So one thing that I think most of us living here in Thailand for any time realize is that most Thais don't earn very much, far less than in the West, in Western Europe or North America. And with the big exception of the super rich, and there are very visible super rich Thais driving around in their incredible luxury Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces and who knows what. These are unbelievably rich, tiny minority in Thailand. With that exception, most Thais don't have much cash in their pocket, even less than in the West. And what this means is that nearly all big ticket items like motorbikes or cars or whatever are bought on credit. People can't buy them with cash. They don't have the cash in their pocket to buy them. So they finance the vehicle, the motorbike or the car, they finance it through a finance company or a bank. And that's what had happened with the bike I was looking at in Bangkok. So, okay, that obviously raised a few questions with me about, how so safe it would be to buy this bike, not really knowing who owns it. And they said to me, don't worry, in a couple of weeks we'll have the book. Okay. Then I just spoke to them about paying a deposit maybe if I was interested in having the bike. They said, oh yes, you can do that, you can pay us a deposit. And their suggestion was that I should pay them a deposit, which was pretty well 90% of the price they were asking for the bike. So that didn't make any sense to me. The bike had an unusually, I would say, suspiciously low kilometer mileage on it, on the odometer. I think it was something silly like 5,000 kilometers. The bike was, I think it was 5 years old. Okay, there are bikes like that. There are some all over the world. There are people who buy bikes and for whatever reason don't ever get around to riding them. That's especially the case in countries where the weather's pretty bad, like in the UK, for example, where bikers often only ride for about 3 months a year because of the weather. Anyway, it's not very typical, I think, here in Thailand. People depend on the motorbikes to get around. And okay, so then I asked to see the green, not just the green book, but the service history. I said, "Have you got the service history? The service manual that comes with the bike?" "Oh no, we don't have that." And then I started thinking, and that was the first experience I had where I encountered this issue. No green book. The odometer, kilometer level shown, the number of kilometers it's supposed to have been ridden seemed unusually low to me. And then also no service history. I thought, well, why would you sell, especially a bike that looks pretty good and apparently only has 5,000 kilometers on the odometer, why would you not have a service history, even if it's just a first service or something? But no documents. Anyway, that was that first experience. I came back up here to Chiang Rai. I sold the Classic 350, then started looking seriously for a replacement. At the beginning, I was thinking of getting another Royal Enfield, an Interceptor, which is the one I was looking at. That's the model I was looking at in Bangkok. Then I changed my mind a little bit, partly because of that experience. And I thought, maybe I should buy a bike where if there's something wrong with it, I can get it fixed more easily. So the big brand here in Thailand, the market leader, is Honda. Honda has a reputation, I think, probably all over the world for reliability and quality. And they're the number one brand, the so-called big bikes, is the 500cc Honda motorbike in various models, in various forms. And that's, I think, is normally a very safe option to get that bike, because it can be fixed pretty well anywhere. Every street corner's got a workshop on it, or a couple of teenagers working on bikes, and they know that engine very well. So anyway, I sold my Classic 350. I saw several adverts on Facebook Marketplace. There's more on offer in Chiang Mai than in Chiang Rai. Chiang Mai is a much bigger city. It's the second biggest city in Thailand. It's 180 kilometers from here. And I found some interesting bikes in Chiang Mai on Facebook Marketplace, 2 different Honda models, and I drove down to the weekend to see these bikes in Chiang Mai. As I say, far more on offer in Chiang Mai than here in Chiang Rai. I was a little bit annoyed because it seemed to me that I was talking to 2 different private Thai individuals who were selling their bikes privately. It turns out they were both actually a Thai couple, both presumably working on a commission basis for a small business, very similar to what I found in Bangkok, where there were a dozen bikes in front of a house. And these 2 individuals both made appointments for me, one in the evening of the first day and the other in the morning of the second day, to see the 2 different bikes which were located together at the same property. And only when I went actually to see the first bike, I realized that the second bike I was going to see the next day was in the same place. Anyway, it was too dark to see both bikes, and went back the next day, and I ended up buying that Honda 500 motor Honda Rebel which was not a model I'd been looking at originally, but part of the reason I bought it was the price was right. It seemed to be a very good condition, an attractive bike. It had that Honda 500 engine, and it has a fantastic reputation for being pretty well indestructible. So I thought this is a safe bet. They gave me a 10% discount on the price they were asking on Facebook. And like I said, it turns out that they were basically working in a small business, very small business, with a dozen or so bikes. And I think, these are the conclusions I've come to. This bike also is also just about 5 years old. Shows on the odometer a mileage of about 30,000, less than 30,000 kilometers. Maybe true, maybe not, who knows? Because again, no service history. There's no service book with the bike to show it had its first service or second service or oil change or whatever. And it does have a green book. I bought the bike because I knew it had the green book, so there was no problem about getting the bike registered in my name. And but whether it's really got 30,000 kilometers or far more, who knows? But there's no service history. And as I say, I think the reason why there are practically no bikes being sold directly from one person to another on Facebook or anywhere else is because of what I said right at the beginning. Most Thais don't have much cash in their pocket, and they depend on financing. So this bike, which cost me less than 100,000 baht, which is 2,500 euros, a bit more than 2,500 US dollars. And they gave me about a 10% discount on the asking price. And I think most Thais don't have the cash to buy. I had the cash partly because I just sold my Royal Enfield, so I was able to buy that bike. And they don't have the finance, they don't have the cash, so they need to finance the bike. So that's the reason why I think all of these bikes, which otherwise would probably have been sold by the previous owner, end up being sold through a little, small business buying and selling motorbikes, because they offer finance. So if I'd been a Thai person and as a foreigner, I'm not not able to get credit here in Thailand, even if I wanted it. Thais depend on that. So this is why there are very few individuals selling to other individuals on Facebook or anywhere else. So, okay, that's the first thing. This little business offers finance. I didn't need it. I paid in cash. They gave me a good discount, perhaps because I was paying in cash. I don't know. Got a good bike, very reliable, dependable. It has the 500cc engine. And as I say, that's part of the reason I chose it. I wasn't looking for a sort of cruiser type, bobber type bike at the time, but I thought, okay, it's the Honda first and foremost. That's the super reliable brand. Almost certainly made in Thailand. They make a huge number of Honda bikes in Thailand. I think Thailand is the only country making the CRF, for example, that rally bike. I think it's only made in Thailand. And so I thought, okay, even if I don't know the service history, because there is no service history on this bike, there's no book showing when it was given an oil change or whatever, at least with this being a Honda and having the 500 motor, it's not going to probably give me any trouble. And if it does, I can easily get it fixed. It's the #1 brand. So that's one reason I bought the bike. And the first thing I did when I brought it back here to Chiang Rai is to take it in and have the oil changed, have the brakes checked, change the brake fluid. I changed the chain, I changed the sprockets. I did a pretty well full service on it, just to be on the safe side. So it's run very well. I've had it a couple of months now, and I've ridden it a few thousand kilometers. No problem at all. And it's actually more economical, or at least as economical as my little 350 Royal Enfield Classic single cylinder air-cooled engine. Partly perhaps because it's a bigger engine, it doesn't need to struggle so much when I'm trying to go 100 kilometers an hour. And it's water-cooled and so on. So it's got a bit more power, obviously quite a lot more power than the Classic 350. And so those are the lessons I learned. I think it's a fair assumption that because there's no service history on most of these bikes, that what a lot of Thais do is turn back the clock. So it doesn't really have 30,000 kilometers. Maybe it's got 50. Maybe it's done 60,000. There's no way of knowing. It's very difficult to know if you don't have a service history. So that's one lesson. Number two is be careful with the green book. Make sure that the book is really owned 100% by the person or the people trying to sell it to you. If you don't have the green book, you can't prove ownership. And since so many of these bikes, or most of them, nearly all of them, are credit financed, not bought in cash, not bought immediately by the purchaser, the green book may be owned by, the bike may be owned by somebody else, not the person trying to sell it to you. And yeah, the other issue is one which I'm not sure all foreigners are aware of living here in Thailand. In theory, at least, foreigners are only allowed to buy a motorbike or a vehicle from another foreigner if that other foreigner is living in their same province. I think Thailand has about 70 different provinces, including Chiang Rai and Chiang Mai, which are separate provinces. In theory, at least, because the government here passed a law prohibiting foreigners from buying vehicles outside of their province from other foreigners. They can buy from Thais anywhere in the country, from Bangkok or, in my case, in Chiang Mai or anywhere else, if the person selling is a Thai. But in order, supposedly, to prevent foreigners from doing business, which they're not allowed to do without a business visa, a work visa, they have a law which says foreigners can only buy from other foreigners in the same province as themselves. So I think foreigners need to be aware of that. In my case, I bought the bike, I bought the Honda Rebel 500 from Thais. So there was no issue with that, and I got the bike successfully re-registered here in this province in Chiang Rai. And one other issue, separate issue altogether, is that people may not be aware of coming to live in Thailand, is that it's, for most bikes, most new motorbikes, if somebody's interested in buying a brand new motorbike, there are very few of the motorbike dealers here who are prepared to let you test ride a motorbike. You can't say, can I take it around the block for 20 minutes and see if I like it? No, no, no. You can buy the bike, but you can't test it first. So that's very different from other countries. There are a couple of brands. Royal Enfield is one example, where they will allow you to go on a very short 20-minute test ride around the block. And they'll tell you where to go and how to come back. Also Triumph here in Chiang Rai, you can test ride a bike for half an hour, and they will have one of their sales people go on another Triumph bike beside you on the road. So you're not on your own really, you're basically following the salesman. But at least they allow you to go on a 20-minute bike ride around the city streets outside the dealership. But as I say, Honda in particular, and they are the market leader here in Thailand, they will not, as far as I know, at least in the north, in Chiang Rai and Chiang Mai, it's probably the same everywhere in Thailand, they will not allow you to test ride a bike, even though you're parting with $10,000 or the equivalent. When you buy a new bike, they won't allow you to test ride it first, which is quite extraordinary, I think. And when I watch those YouTube videos of all those different YouTube channels, Freddie Dobbs and all the others, who not only test ride bikes for an hour or two, but are given them by the dealerships or by their brands for what seems to be weeks or even months to ride for free in order to produce their YouTube test videos. I think that's something that's probably completely unknown in this country. I can't imagine that any of these bike brands, whether it's Honda or Ducati or BMW or anybody else, would ever even give bikes to journalists in order for them to test and to ride. Maybe it happens with Thais, and I don't know because I don't speak Thai, certainly not Thai well enough in order to understand what's being said on a Thai YouTube video. I hope that the information I've given you today in this video about buying a second-hand motorbike in Thailand has been of interest to you. I hope that I've drawn the right conclusions from the experiences I had looking at bikes and then buying my own bike. And if you disagree with me, if you have a completely different opinion, and please tell me as well in the comments below. If you're not yet a subscriber, please subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to build a channel here. I've done almost 30 videos and I don't even yet have 300 subscribers. So I'm definitely working hard on new videos, trying to get more subscribers. Please do me the favor of clicking on that subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and become a new subscriber to my channel. Thank you very much indeed for watching the video today, and I hope you watch my next one, I hope next week. Thanks very much. Bye-bye. Cheers.